Do we? Good afternoon. It is 11:30 a.m. on Thursday, April 10th, 2025, and this is the regular meeting of the Sandpoint Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Committee. It is now called to order in council chambers at City Hall, 1123 West Lake Street, Sandpoint, Idaho. For the record, I am Committee Chair Kate Huseman presiding. Also present are Vice Chair Molly O'Reilly and committee members Aaron Billings. Aaron's not here. Do we have a quorum? All we have is Jen, Bradley, Julie, and Molly. That's 8.
Count yourself.
Jen's not here. Bradley, Molly. We have 4 out of 8. Is that considered a quorum?
How many members are there?
8.
8.
Am I counted in the 8 or no?
No.
Yeah, I think that's.
I don't know.
Say again.
We're not sure we have a quorum, Molly. 4 of the 8 of us are here. We know that Reed and Evan won't be coming. Jen usually gets here a little late, and Erin knows she's going to be late because she's presiding at a kindergarten bike rodeo today.
Yeah,
I think you need a majority for it to be a quorum. That's how I understand it.
We need 5.
Yeah. So, if you had 9, it would be 5, but since you only have 8, then 4 and 4 is not a majority, so.
Okay.
just hang on a sec. I'll ask Jen if she's coming. I'll text her.
Sam, do you want to suspend the meeting or just stop it and start over?
Finding out.
Just got an email. Let's see if that reveals anything useful. No.
We're gonna stop the meeting until we have a quorum.
Org. Good afternoon. It is 11:37 a.m. on Thursday, April 10th, 2025, and this regular meeting of the Sandpoint Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Committee is now called to order in council chambers at City Hall, 1123 West Lake Street, Sandpoint, Idaho. For the record, I am Committee Chair Kate Huseman presiding. Also present are Vice Chair Molly O'Reilly and committee members Jennifer Heller, Bradley Peterson, and Julie Perchinsky. Reed Weber, Aaron Billings, and Evan Lewis are absent. In addition to our committee, Council Liaison Deb Rule, Staff Liaison Brandon Steglin, and Board Clerk Samantha Branscombe are also present. At this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from our March 13th, 2025 meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve? Approved. Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Molly. Did you get those, Sam? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion passes and the minutes are approved as presented. So at this time, I would have offered members of the public in attendance an opportunity to comment, but since no members of the public are in attendance, we can dispense with that and go ahead to old business, which would be Brandon facilitating continued discussion regarding the need to select a presiding officer when both the committee chair and vice chair are available to attend in person. Brandon.
Okay. Brandon Staglin, city engineer, just to follow up briefly. If the chair and the vice chair are not going to be present in person at any upcoming meeting, what we would ask is that you both just let me know and Samantha, our clerk, let us know that and at the beginning of the meeting, I will call it to order and we will have directions from the clerk at that time on how to select an interim chair so we can continue the meeting if there is a quorum in that situation. So
just for that meeting.
just for that meeting.
Mhm.
So that's it.
Any
Any questions?
discussion, concern? Great. Thank you, Brandon. All right, we'll now move on to new business, and I'd like to start by welcoming our new board clerk, Samantha Branscombe. Sam works for the city as the Public Works Department Administrative Assistant and also serves as clerk for the Urban Forestry Commission. Welcome, Sam. And now we'll move on to subcommittee reports. I think we'll start with the intersection subcommittee since the events committee was first in the agenda, but I'm putting it last because by the time we get there, perhaps Erin will be here and she's most on top of that. So Julie, you and I talked a little about what the events subcommittee was going to do.
Intersection.
Thank you.
That's okay.
Jen, we didn't get to talk with you, but Julie's going to tell us, at least introduce the first part of that list that was attached to the agenda, which is our recommendations for the city. Right, Julie?
Intersection, yes.
Okay.
The first one is Highway 2 from Division to Boyer is 35 mile an hour. And when I talked to the ITD, Nathan Herbst, he understood that it was 25 miles an hour from Division to Boyer. And so I sent him some photos of the speed limit signs all the way down Highway 2, and I haven't heard anything back from that. So that's kind of what I'm looking into, is that speed limit being 35 mile an hour up into Dubs, and that being not a city speed limit. And then on the Highway 2 and Boyer crosswalk, short-term ideas we had, that's our dangerous crosswalk. That's where we look at so much trouble there for walkers and bike riders. And the short term is to definitely repaint the lines, put up signs that say watch for pedestrians, and or orange flags, some kind of visual for people walking across so they have a better idea that they need to watch for pedestrians. And then the long term is also in that list of ideas that we sent along, and those more involved moving the crosswalk to go from corner to corner instead of going to the middle of the walkway is probably the bulk of it, of what we want to see happen. So I guess that's pretty much it of what we sent for recommendations.
Do you want to add anything to that, Jen? You're on the intersection subcommittee, right?
Yes. Did I miss anything? What else?
No, I think the biggest thing we're talking about is that right-hand turning traffic going both directions seems to be missing pedestrians sometimes. Left-hand, not as bad. So we were just kind of brainstorming things that wouldn't be terribly involved to try to get pedestrians more visible. The flags and stuff seem like easier things, or maybe just better signage we looked into, but I don't know that we have a full answer yet. I know Molly was going to look into it more. The idea of like whether pedestrians can activate some type of flashing light in an intersection. It seemed like initially that was limited to non-intersections, or non-car intersections, kind of like what we have further up to and at Church and at Oak. So while we like that idea, we don't know what options there are for that. And ultimately, it seems like everything we're looking at, if we can somehow get pedestrians closer to the corner for right-hand turning traffic in both directions, they will be more visible to drivers. Because right now, being 12 feet away coming off the bike path and 12 feet away coming from the park direction, right-hand turning traffic is often speeding up to hit that light before it changes, and or as it changes, they're approaching and they're like, oh, it's green, and the pedestrians are far enough away that they're not always catching them. So we were kind of brainstorming things to do with that. I don't know that I'm adding to it more than context, but
By not always catching them, you mean they're not always seeing them.
they're not
That's
always
been a problem.
seeing them.
People are in
particularly-
the intersection and drivers are coming at them, not having seen them enter.
Particularly with
if you look at that intersection, it goes, the crosswalk goes straight across the highway, but the corner is over there. So it doesn't come to the corner of the intersection where there's a post. So just looking at that when you drive by, check that out and you'll understand more about why or how far it is offset and how hard it is to see the people stepping out.
Mhm.
Another issue
That's,
uh,
it-
on Boyer turning right onto Highway 2, that radius is just mad. I mean, it's not a 90-degree turn, so
Yeah,
people can.
That's
Yeah.
My
exactly,
son,
yes.
my son and wife almost got hit
Yes,
2 days
me
ago.
too.
because
that's
that
that's,
Truck was just blasted out of that
yeah,
corner.
that's right.
The green line just wasn't looking, forced to
Yeah.
stop at the last moment, but
Mhm.
that's a nasty corner.
Yeah.
That's a really bad corner.
Molly, did you want to add something?
it's
It's
been
been
pretty,
pretty, gosh.
now can you hear me? Sorry about that.
Yeah, we hear you.
It's been pretty standard to have the pedestrian cross the shortest possible on it when you have a diagonal corner. And that's created the problem that we're discussing. There's a little bit in the literature about having the pedestrians closer to the corner. So the guidance is starting to flex. And that's what we're suggesting because this clearly hasn't been safe. I've almost been hit by left turners, and I know a cyclist who commutes through that corner who's had that problem repeatedly. And we don't, the potential solution for that is one we didn't get to or really recommend this time, which is not allowing Boyer left turns except when they're protected, when they have their own green arrow and don't have to look to the right to make sure that they're not going to, that they aren't going to get hit, or look straight ahead rather than to their left. I'm not sure I was very articulate, but I definitely support everything that the committee recommends and to this committee. And then the next step would be, does this committee want to recommend them to the city?
And we put that list, we attached that to the agenda. But I was talking with Brandon before the meeting today. We have to put a vote on the agenda specifically. So
Action item.
an action item, we need to, and I've made a note to remember to ask Brandon to put that on the agenda for our next meeting, a specific vote on our intersection subcommittee's recommendations. And that gives us one more meeting to refine them. So I think that's cool.
Well, and this is a great opportunity to learn whether there are questions or concerns about these recommendations, or if the other committee members who are here think they sound like something they would be supportive of.
Well, that's a good question. We only have one other person present who is not on it.
Like,
You only need 5 votes.
the turn should be addressed too. That's my only.
Oh, yeah, you hit
Yes.
the nail on the head.
Mhm.
That's exactly what we
Which
did. And that's why Julie looked
Going
into.
south of Boyer, turning right onto US 2.
So,
So if you're coming from Boyer,
so coming from South Sandpoint,
Going
turning,
into South Sandpoint.
going,
coming from North Sandpoint.
Yeah,
Yeah,
coming from North Sandpoint,
Take a right.
turning right onto Highway 2.
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay,
It's just that super
yeah,
wide.
so the bike path corner,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
the
You just get
barbecue
too much speed
corner.
before you hit the crosswalk.
Oh, yeah.
And that's exactly what
Oh, yeah.
happened. The person just they had a long runway and they took off and
Mhm.
pretty damn fast before they saw us.
Totally different subject, back up. Just Julie, who did you say you spoke to about the?
Nathan Herbst, Herbst,
And he's with the state?
itd.idaho.gov. It's Nathan.Herbst@itd.
Okay, I'll figure it
Yeah.
out.
any other discussion of intersections? Are we ready to move on to MTMP subcommittee report?
I just need to point out one more time that, I have to protest the subcommittee, like subcommittee members of a committee talking to other, agencies and representing yourself as a representative of the city. I just think it can kind of get out of control if we have, a lot of different committee members, contacting different agencies. They might have conflicting opinions. So I think the appropriate way to do it would be to have like, to get it to a level where somebody from city council could direct staff to talk to ITD,
Okay,
just for the future.
I'll just
I'm not
tell you,
trying to-
no, of course,
just-
I questioned that myself, but it kind of came down that I emailed the PR gal. And she sent my email to Nathan. Nathan contacted me.
Yep.
And that's when I learned that he understood it to be 25 mile an hour all the way through. And I thought, oh, well, it's not. So yeah, that's all the further I've gone. I haven't done anything since then.
Okay,
And I won't go and I won't
Yeah.
do that again.
just,
And Brandon, your point is a good one. Thank you. But on this specific topic, having that stretch be 25 miles an hour rather than 35, signed 35 would be really great. What would the committee recommend from here, given exactly where we are today?
Just needs to be an action item and we vote.
Right,
that-
right. So we would come up with a recommendation today that the committee would take action on next month, right? Since that's part of the subcommittee report.
Say that again, Molly?
So what I'm suggesting is that since we've talked about this and have some background on it, we know ITD thinks it's 25, it's signed 35. We'd like it to be signed 25 if it actually is 25, and if it's not, we'd like it to become 25. And we have no action item on today's agenda, but we could put together what we would like to take action on next time, right?
Right. And
Yeah,
that's in the intersection subcommittee request to be made at April 10th meeting that was attached to the agenda. In the documents for this meeting that were on the city's website. And I thought we could vote today, but now I realize we have to have an action item on the agenda, so we can't vote on these until our next meeting.
The other way I think to approach that action item would be to request the mayor direct staff to check into the,
Whether it's true or not.
well, 25 mile an hour limit. Yes, that's true within city limits. It is a
Right.
state highway, so it gets a little gray. You know, we know the specifics of it, but it would be requesting of the mayor because I don't think it's something that needs to go to council to a vote thing. It's more of a procedural thing. And so if we request of the mayor to direct staff to figure out why that's not congruent,
Yeah.
then, and I think some of these other issues are the same, like, can we request of the mayor to direct staff to get some more orange flags there? Little tiny things that aren't huge budgetary things or large changes, seem to me to make the most sense to do that.
So,
And I can double check that with the mayor if, you know.
yeah, so because we're gonna need to vote on this, we need to know whether we're requesting it of the mayor or of staff or of council. See, we don't request anything of staff, do we? We request.
No, we don't direct staff. We are liaisons to the council, but we're also liaisons to the mayor. The mayor directs council. So you could write it as both and then you cover all your bases.
Okay.
Request of council and the mayor, recommendations to council and the mayor, and then the mayor will pick it up and direct it where he thinks it needs to go.
Okay. I made it,
okay, well,
thank you.
and we could do the wording at our next intersection subcommittee meeting, knowing how this committee feels.
Right.
Okay, so there's gonna be a specific action item for the 35 mile per hour speed limit. Do you want to create a separate action item for the rest of the improvements that are recommended by the subcommittee?
Yes,
Please.
you're way ahead of me.
And those are all related to intersection improvements at Boyer and Highway too.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Got
Very
it.
specific, yeah.
I
So
think
that
that's
was,
good. That's what I need.
right,
Thank
so that was orange flags, repaint the crosswalks and maybe
Signs.
reconfigure.
Signage like pedestrian,
There's-
watch for pedestrians.
Sign, watch for pedestrians going north and no sign coming south. Coming south is where the biggest problem is.
Like further up on.
And
Boyer.
then we have
Getting all that.
several other recommendations that are all much more expensive.
I think what I would ask is that, I can put it generally as an action item and, either the subcommittee or you as the chair could draft up. I mean, you should come up with language about what you want the motion to
Right.
be, specifically. So that when you come to call for the vote, you have very specific language that you're reading about what it is that you're recommending.
Right.
So I'll leave that up to you.
We will do
Right.
that next intersections subcommittee meeting.
Yeah, good idea.
All right, so now. Is anyone from the multimodal transportation master
Yeah.
plan subcommittee prepared to speak?
I can speak to it. So the last meeting we had was basically just all around high level priorities for phase 3, downtown revitalization, work. After the mayor spoke, basically, we don't want to, pigeonhole the engineer. We want to let them do what they want to do, but we want to just general high level, ideas incorporated into the plan. Those ideas are attached then to the minutes. I'm not sure if I should read all these. It might take a couple minutes, or if we should.
I read them in
Okay.
advance. Did you read them?
Mhm.
You read them? Did you read them?
I did not.
So our general plan was similar. Wanted to put this in front of you guys, see if you guys had any additional ideas, wanted some stuff axed, and then bring it to a vote as like general, like this is how we feel. I don't think it really needs to go to city council, just when the engineer gets hired, give it to him and just let him know that. Or give it to them, whoever it is, let them know that.
I like the
This is,
idea
committee
that
feels
that
like.
brought up that in general, I think if you're making recommendations or anything, you can recommend to the mayor
Yeah,
and they can filter through the mayor. And if the
Okay.
mayor wants to direct staff to incorporate them into the
Yeah.
design, we can do that.
cool.
It seems like the most official way to do it.
So then do we need to put an agenda item on the next meeting?
Mhm.
Yeah, to vote for that, yeah.
And we could just bullet point those.
Yeah. And that's how it's set up right now, just bullet points, all relatively high level ideas.
So again,
Number one is,
if you want to come up with the language for the proposed motion that
okay,
you would be making
okay.
and get it to Kate.
In the meantime, if anyone has any suggestions, email them to somebody on the committee and we'll add them to our list and then vote on them next month.
Okay, so it sounds like we would all be wise to pay attention to the documentation that's presented with the agenda for our next meeting so we can be ready to vote.
Yeah,
on it.
for
Okay,
3 items now.
Yeah. Who could we email if we do? I didn't have any, but I'll read it again. Who could we email on the subcommittee? if we
Right
have
now,
some-
Evan's kind of the author of this document, so probably send it to him.
Okay.
anything else on the MTMP?
And that was really it. I
Okay,
just talked about phase 3.
all right, thank you. Development review, we have someone here from development review. Do you have anything to present at this time?
We are not reconvening until we have more guidance on what,
Right.
yeah, so I'm glad it's on there, but yeah, I don't think we have anything to do with it. Molly, do you? We definitely didn't meet. I don't think we had anything to discuss, do you? For development?
No. Except, no. We left it that we didn't feel content with how we would learn about developments in a timely way so that we could have input early and effectively and not, for sure, not slow anything down.
Yeah, I think we were planning to reconvene once we get more guidance on like once we have a better idea on how to do that. So,
Right.
All right, so if that's it from the Development Review Subcommittee, I will present for the Events Subcommittee. We actually have been quite active, and I had hoped Aaron would be here in time to talk about these plans, but we have plans to be involved in two events that the city and the school district are working on. One is on Wednesday, May 7th. There is going to be we're calling it Walk Bike to School Day. I'm not sure exactly what it is. But it's we want to try to have some presence to people who are walking or biking to school on that day, so they are aware that our subcommittee exists. And so we're gonna have a little tent outside the Conixu Land Trust office. They're donating tent and coffee and or donuts, I'm not sure which. And we just want to be out there handing out donuts and coffee to cyclists and walkers, and I tried to make little name tags for us in time for this meeting, but I don't always get along with my printer. So that didn't happen yet, but I will have some available that day if others of you on Wednesday, May 7th could come to, it's right along the bike path outside Conixu Land Trust, which is on Highway 2.
Between Michigan and Division.
Thank you. Then you could hand those out too and wear your name tag, and we could let the community know that we exist. That would be cool. And I'm also asked to say that Emily, whose last name I can't pronounce, with Ponderay Peddlers, is doing a commuter cup for the month of May for local businesses where employees are encouraged to bike or use any form of commute other than a car. And if you or the people you work for want to be involved in that, you are encouraged to. So that's Wednesday, May 7th. On Thursday, May 8th, we have another pedestrian bicycle committee meeting. And then on Friday, May 9th, there's going to be another opportunity for us to have a public presence again at 7:15 a.m. Participating in the Farman School bike bus, which means a bunch of cyclists cycling together. We're meeting at the Hickory Park gazebo on Spruce Street, and we will be doing some kind of circuitous route around, I would guess, all of it north of the highway, ending up at Farman Stidwell School. And if you want to participate in that, that would be very helpful. Again, I will be there. I will hopefully have resolved my differences with my printer by then.
Not the shape.
Not a name tag for myself and name tags for anyone else who shows up too. That would be great. And Brandon was quite involved and enthusiastic in the planning of this meeting. Do you want to add anything to that, Brandon?
No, when is the bike bus?
The bike bus is
May 9th.
May 9th, Friday, at
Hickory
Hickory
Park.
Park gazebo. And then the coffee and donuts are Wednesday, May 7th at
On the Dover Trail,
the Dover bike
Next
path.
to the-
Thank you. Yes.
next to
Uh,
the building.
it's real close to the animal hospital.
Across from
Right.
Jitters.
Yeah.
Jitters. Okay, yeah.
Jitters, the little coffee stand.
And that's at what time?
7:15 for the early birds among us.
And then I just had a question about the POP thing where they're doing all the downtown businesses in a competition. Is the city, quote unquote, included as a business?
Yeah, if they get that going, What I had said is that I want to be the person at the city that rounds up a bunch of people. to
Okay, so
participate.
you're gonna create the city as a business to do the
Yes.
competition?
Yeah,
Perfect.
not running the thing, but yeah.
No, you're
Like,
just
the
kind of
same
the
way as-
liaison for the employees to
Exactly.
say, hey, everybody, let's be a team. and do
And,
that.
I guess my other thought was the idea that was brought up that, if it's a competition and we're scoring points. The idea that you could, if you didn't live in city limits, that you could get, account a day for multimodal transportation by taking a half hour, an hour walk at lunch would allow the city to get probably tenfold increase in the number of people that participate. Because I think I tried to count them, there's probably maybe 5 people in the entire city hall that work at city hall that live within the city limits. So
You could make Jason ride to work every day.
Jason and Maeve are, well, yeah, Jason's just outside of city limits,
Yeah,
but
he can do it.
Maeve's 2 blocks away. She rides her bike every day.
I know,
So that's
she
an
does.
easy win.
Mhm.
Those are easy points.
That's a nice idea, like including the lunch break people, because
Yeah, great way to bring people.
Emily, yeah, I would just present that to Emily. She's pretty awesome, so.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right, I think that's
Gold
it on
star.
events. Is there anyone here that's on events committee with me? No, they're both absent. Okay. So I'll call that item finished, and now we'll move on to Brandon presenting something on the city's division.
sorry, before we move on, can you or someone from the subcommittee remind us that week?
Remind,
Because we
oh,
have a
yes,
number of
that's a good
people,
point.
Like send out an email, because we have
Okay.
a couple people that aren't here.
Right.
And some of us are,
And then there's the problem that I can't email everybody because that
oh,
kind of, it's constitutes a meeting without noticing the public because it's,
can you craft an email and have staff?
yeah, can you do that, Sam?
Yeah.
That would be cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, I will get that, on my calendar. To remind Sam, that'd be great.
and I think that's, I mean, yeah, we'll do it that way, but it's a little gray when it's just a reminder and it's not a discussion.
yeah.
But I agree, we should just keep it clean because it can go awry. It can go awry, so.
I've made enough errors that I'm highly sensitive
Yeah,
to this.
and I think we should just remain highly sensitive, but like event reminders,
Yeah, not as scary.
it's defensible, I think, in a court of law. We just sent out a reminder, nobody
Yeah.
responded.
No, I even checked with Melissa to see if I was allowed to make name tags. But I am, that's good.
It's kind of.
If only I can figure out how to make them now. Okay, so, now we're ready to move on to your discussion of the Great Northern Commerce Park subdivision preliminary plat, please, Brandon.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen.
Oh, if we skip on to that, could it be possible that, in the reminders that it could be like a calendar thing, like, does that make sense?
Oh, like a calendar link, like post this on your calendar? Is that what you?
Yeah, when the reminder goes,
I brought that up one time and I got axed.
got axed that you
It
can't.
seems really nice to be able to click and add it to your calendar, though. That'd be sweet.
Oh, that would be cool.
For all, like, for meetings and
Look
everything.
into it. Well, I know that Melissa can send us those little things, but I don't know. Anyway. If, because that might simplify the whole process if it was just,
That's
bike event, it's basically just the title and it's a reminder and gets sent to everybody. And then somebody doesn't have to compose an email to send to you that then you got to send to everybody else. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's about-
I'm just trying to make it more efficient and less staff time for you guys.
Okay. Go ahead, please, Brandon.
Okay, Division Avenue corridor improvements, phase 2. Background, in 2023, summer of 23, the city did phase 1 of this project, which is, on the east side of Division Avenue between Highway 2 and Michigan. We moved the curb line in, reduced the vehicle pavement width, added a planter, and provided a buffer between the sidewalk and report the sidewalk, and added new curb ramps. Phase 2 will be this area that I have highlighted in kind of red on my screen here. It's just going to be 2 more blocks to finish on the east side of Division between Superior and Pine Street. So I want to switch to the city's homepage here. I'm going to show you how to find all of the details on the first phase. Basically what we're doing is continuing that same concept for 2 more blocks to the north. So that's where we're starting. You can go to departments at the top of the homepage and go under Public Works and Utilities. You can click on Public Works Projects, and it'll bring you to this ClearGov page, which actually has all of our ongoing capital projects on a map and on a list on the left side of the page. But this one, I believe, is number 8. And you can click on that, and this is the landing page that has a lot of details about that first phase that we did. There's some kind of cool graphics there about the existing cross section of the street, you know, what we're changing it to, and then the future build out, which, by the way, the vision for that is the entire stretch of Division from the highway all the way up to Baldy will be a road diet where the curbs will be moved in on either side. We'll have trees and planter strips on each side of the road, and separated sidewalk on one side and a multi-use path to kind of complete what's already there on the west side of Division. So take some time and review that. And as we move forward with that project, the committee might want to discuss further, add it to another agenda item, possibly add, you know, recommendations to the mayor to pass on to staff about how to move forward with that project. Where we're at right now is, I believe we got approved for the grant to fund it, so we haven't designed it yet. I'm going to try to do it in-house myself to try to save on consultant engineering costs. And then the Public Works project managers will do a normal procurement process where we, you know, we're going to present preliminary plans publicly at council, I would imagine, at least once. And then it'll go in front of council again to get approval to go out to bid. It'll go in front of council again one more time to get approval to award the bid. So you'll see it if you pay attention to city council meetings as we move on in the process. So that's really good. I'll open it up for any questions that anyone has.
I have one, one really easy question. The existing phase 1 looks great. Why? I know it takes a lot of effort to get the total funding, which is why it's broken out into phases. If the long-term vision is a multi-use path down that side, won't we have to come back through and change what we did with phase 1?
No, the path's on the other side.
On the high school side. Right.
I've
Yeah.
swapped my sides in my head.
Yeah, so we're not building anything that will need to be ripped up to make way for the future concept.
Okay.
Unless it changes.
Yeah, last time I went down it, I was on the east side, so that's what I'm doing. I'm going backwards. Cool, that makes sense.
My only
And-
comment that I would bring up here, and I've made this request and Brandon's heard that, is that what we're doing is great, first of all, but when we maybe do our next phase, that instead of working from one direction all the way down to the railroad tracks in Baldy, that we start our next phase closer to Farm and Stidwell, where there are smaller people who could really benefit at a greater degree from some of these improvements, because there's a lot of snow piling up issues and stuff down there. So that's just something I'm going to throw out at the committee. And then we kind of move to the middle ground.
You know, if you could remember that next week, I will put an item on the agenda for providing specific feedback to Brandon for those of us who have looked at this. And it won't be something we'll vote on. We can just give him suggestions based on our observations.
Discussion item about it. Yep. That's
Thank you.
great.
Yeah.
Yep. Perfect. I also do want to point out that, you know, as you think about it, another recommendation might be to do the other side of Division next to the high school. The other advantage I didn't point out with this, all of this work is that because the sidewalk is right next to the curb, what we call curbside sidewalk on the west side of Division. You might have noticed all those driveways that cut into the parking lots are actually not ADA accessible and they don't meet the federal requirements. Because the cross slope is 8% when it should be 2%. And it actually does cause some problems. I've seen it anecdotally. When it gets icy out there, you'll see kids slipping and falling on those slip driveway. So what this will allow us to do with the buffer, it allows us to build the sidewalk flat and then ramp, you know, the driveway in that buffer space.
Is that something that could get fixed if there's a couple problem zones with ancillary, like you said, there's like miscellaneous funding set aside for just like random small pieces of stuff?
There is. Yeah.
So is there any way we could pull from that a little bit if there's no funds left after doing the current phase, but do it at the same time when we're already messing with traffic?
Possibly. And the fix without moving the curb line, the other option to fix those driveway slopes would be to tear out the whole driveway, ramp the sidewalk down to the street elevation so that it's flat through the driveway. And it would require getting permission from the private property owners to, you know, pave a ramp on their property to tie into the existing.
Mhm.
It's hard to kind of explain
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
words, but there is an option to come in and spot fix those driveways with funding.
Would it make sense to try to do it at the same time, or would it be better to do separate?
I think it's best to do it as part of a capital project, but that's just my opinion. So
When was the west side asphalt pathway last repaved?
I don't know.
It's been about 10 years since I tried it on my bike and couldn't keep things in my basket because they kept popping out. We might want to walk it. My sense is that it's dramatically in need of repaving, but you don't want to repave it probably unless you're going to make it meet ADA.
That's right. We're required when we do any new work.
Hmm.
We are required to do whatever we can to make it meet the accessibility guidelines, which are PRO-WAG, which is the public right of way accessibility guidelines that were just published last year.
Yeah. And so if Division gets repaved for the vehicles, then the west side needs to have curb ramps installed at corners, right? Do I remember that from ProWag? Well, actually, before then.
If Division gets repaved,
It already has.
For vehicles, you know, resurfaced. Does this call for any kind of resurfacing in the vehicle areas of Division or just restriping?
oh, this project is some restriping of the existing asphalt. And it's actually, we're gonna cut a width of asphalt out and put curb in. So no,
Got it.
we're not doing any repaving on the vehicle surface. This is all curb and pedestrian facilities.
Okay,
This particular.
thank you. Okay, and is the plan this time or do we wait until we can see a more detailed one to have curb ramps in both directions at each corner on the east side?
We don't have drawings that are available to present at this.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right.
For divisions, Brandon?
Yes, from my perspective.
Other questions about division? Before we move on, Sam, can you just add to the minutes that Aaron has arrived? All right, our last item under new business, Brandon's gonna tell us about the Great Northern Commerce Park subdivision preliminary plat.
Okay, so this one you should have had in your packet, I believe. So you should have had a chance to take a look at this drawing, but what I have up on my screen right now is, it's public information because they have submitted to staff for review of a proposed industrial subdivision. And it's currently in the staff review phase. After staff review phase is complete and they have made the changes that we ask for, then the next step would be to bring the preliminary plat drawing and improvement plans to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And then the Planning and Zoning Commission will either vote to recommend approval to City Council, or they could vote to recommend changes. So go back to the drawing board and then bring it back to P and Z with recommended changes. Yeah, preliminary plat goes to P and Z and then to City Council. If City Council approves it, what that does is it says that they're approved to move forward with the subdivision. In order for it to be finalized and the lots to be created, they have to build all of the public infrastructure that's required as a condition of preliminary plat approval. So that means they have to build all the roads, the utilities, the stormwater, do all the grading. And then when staff signs off on that public infrastructure and a lot of other minor things as far as fees and bonding and all sorts of stuff, when that's closed out, then staff will bring the subdivision back to City Council only, typically on consent agenda, to approve the final plat. Basically taking it to City Council and saying, they've done everything that they promised you that they were gonna do. We're ready to finalize the subdivision and create these lots. And then that allows the owner of the lots to apply for building permit to build something on them. This specific project, I probably should have, just for the record, I'm gonna go back to the GIS map here to show you where the location of this subdivision. So it's north of the airport. At the corner of Woodland and Great Northern, there's a very high profile distribution facility that is currently issued a building permit. They're under construction right now. The plat that we're looking at is right here where I'm clicking. It's the remainder of that property. It used to be a lighthouse property. So the road ties into Woodland and dead ends at the south end of this property here. So
That's right next.
Only one access in from Woodland.
Yes, for now, as part of this subdivision, you can see right here, this is the south end of it. It's gonna dead end here, but they're gonna stub another street out here. And the intent, although there's not a whole lot we can do to force this to happen at any specific time, but the adjacent property will likely be developed and that road will, at that time, we will probably require that they extend that road through to Great Northern. So it's gridded street system, which is what our comp plan and our code actually want. or direct us to do.
Is this piece of land under the, one of those danger zones of the airport?
It is, it's the runway protection zone.
Okay,
So there are requirements regarding to building height and whether people can live there. They have a little bit of more leeway, I believe. I'm not an expert specifically on that. Runway zone's more of a planning thing, but I believe the way they're able to, there's some leeway for industrial and commercial properties because there's not going to be somebody sleeping
right.
next to the runway. So
That's correct. I've been around and down this path and heard it so much, so, and there's different zones, there's this zone, and then there's a little wider zone that things are in. and it's deemed appropriate that industrial use is the best use of land in some of those different varying overlay districts and not putting residential in there, so.
Do we know what they intend to do with these little blocks?
Well, they don't have to tell us right now, because what the application is to create lots, not to build anything. But I will say the intent is, I believe, for it to be kind of like where you have, some maybe shop space and a little office in the front, and a bunch of those little buildings all in a row with a little parking spot in front. And, a plumber or electrician, one-man operation, small local business can lease that. Or buy the lot and run their business out of it.
So is it an industrial business park?
It is.
It's
What was it
commercial
zoned for?
zone.
It's commercial, but it's not IBP zoned? I can't remember where we had some specific little different industrial zones, and one of them was IBP, and this seems perfectly that, but I can't remember.
Well, they can put that in the commercial zone, so, and I'm guessing that, what we have at Baldy and Division on that southeast corner with those little office front, but they're it's, I would guess that it's something like that, or all those ones you see as you're driving through Hayden below,
Right.
just past Lancaster where they're like, but who knows what we're gonna put there, but we could, we're all intelligent humans, we could make some assumptions. They're not gonna be the hangars because they don't have access to the driveways, or could they
They do
connect?
not have through the fence access. So,
Right.
this is an industrial general, it's IG,
Right.
is what it's zoned.
Okay.
So you can see the gray right here up on the screen, that's all industrial general, it's clustered around the airport.
And you can actually see the overlay zone, which is that rectangle
Oh,
that
yeah,
runs, and
yeah.
so it's not really
Not
even
quite.
in that overlay zone, so.
So, Brandon, what do you need from us? Should we look at this and then put something on the agenda for next time? Under discussion items to just provide feedback on this, or do you want us to?
Is it a long ways out from that still? Is this something to wait until they actually get like some first line of approval?
No, we don't want to wait any longer than we have to.
So is there a requirement with industrial subdividing for sidewalk?
Yeah, it doesn't have to do with the zone, what our code says, so I'm gonna go back to the drawing here. Our code, so in order to serve all these lots, they have to build a public right of way, because the lots have to front on the public right of way.
Mhm.
So this, what they're calling for now, A Street, the north-south street, it'll be named something different. That will be public right of way, and our code says that
That
when
they
you,
have to build
when you build a public right of way, you gotta build a typical city street. Unless the public works director gives you, says otherwise. So they're gonna have sidewalk on both sides. It'll be a little bit wider of an asphalt pavement, section, because there's gonna be a lot of truck traffic through here. It won't be a really pedestrian heavy zone, but there will be, I believe there will be curb ramps at, the T intersection down here, is what I told the engineer to do. I'm also, we're in the middle of the comment period, but my intent is also to probably put a mid-block crossing at some point between Woodland and B Street, because the code has some rules about block length. Because of the shape of this property, they can't really make the block length less. But it does say that if you have a really long block, you should make provisions to provide for a mid-block crossing. So that's what staff is pushing for right now. That's
Good.
kind of a negotiation thing between developer and staff. Sometimes they push back hard enough that they might disagree, in which case they'd make their case to P and Z and council that they don't want to comply with it. And then they have to make the argument somehow that they don't have to follow code, which is a tough sell, but.
And will there be curb ramps at Samuelson?
At Woodland, there will be curb ramps at this intersection.
Okay,
It's actually, it will be a requirement of this subdivision as well as it's a requirement of the building permit for that distribution facility on the corner. And so whichever one of those two entities wants to close their project out first, they're gonna have to work it out between themselves about cost sharing or whatever, but somebody's got to build the sidewalk across the whole frontage.
Okay, and then across Woodland to Samuelson, I
No,
mean, there's probably somebody is gonna wanna leave the sidewalk and, cross there, even if there's not currently anything on the other side for them except street. The curb ramps are the on and off for the sidewalk they're attached to. So I would encourage you to ask for curb ramp pointing north there.
So isn't that?
Since they could argue back, is it helpful if we support the staff position?
Like the mid-length crosswalk.
well, there hasn't
Yeah,
been a staff
mid-
decision yet, but if we get to that point, then yeah, it probably would be. It's rare, what I was talking about is a rare thing that happens. It's typically what happens is they do what staff tells them the code says, and then they get it to a point where we're comfortable bringing it to P and Z and council. So it's rare that we're gonna bring something that has requested deviations that we don't agree with. But if it ever got to that point, then I think it would be probably helpful to have this committee advocate for that, or at least make recommendations in preparation for that public hearing to
Okay.
either P and Z or city council that.
Yeah.
But you're also allowed to do that as a private citizen at any time. That's why we have public hearings for all of these processes. So
Okay.
there's nothing really about the bike bed committee that allows you to do that.
So,
I have a question real quick.
Go ahead.
Just. So Molly asked about Samuelson, but it looks like they're proposed, it's gonna be an offset, is that correct? Or not?
Yes.
Okay,
It will.
so it's not going to line up. Okay, that's
Right.
that was all I had.
So it'll be two T intersections.
Well, it looks like on your drawing, like Samuelson heads off north so that it's a T intersection. Is that correct?
Yeah, Samuelson will be a T intersection, and then this new street, what they're calling A Street, will be another T intersection, a couple hundred feet away.
Sure. I see that. But so let's say I'm in a wheelchair and I'm headed east, and now there's sidewalk on the other side of A Street, and I can cross and go along this new thing, but I can't get off. I have no off ramp. So I have to go into the street in front of this brand new sidewalk because I can't get off at the east end.
are there curb ramps on the Samuelson? I'm just wondering if a person in a wheelchair is living in that area north of Samuelson, for example, and
Well,
want to come to work in this new industrial park, can that person get off the sidewalk on Samuelson and get back on Woodland? Or is that what Molly's saying? No, they can't. They have to
That's what
ride their
she's
wheelchair.
saying,
to that
there's
post.
no-
yeah. Yeah, and
Running a
There could-
sidewalk all the way across Woodland, right? That's their requirement, Brandon?
Yes, the south side of.
Yeah.
On their frontage.
Right. but there's no on or off ramp on the east end of that sidewalk shown.
It does seem like that would be a good idea.
Mhm.
And there may well be a coffee shop in this thing. I mean, there are going to be enough people there. There could be a little lunch deli and a coffee shop and, things that might attract people from a little further away. And you'd like everybody to be able to use your new sidewalk.
One thing I was thinking about was potential bike traffic, because if you have that new subdivision north of Woodland, it's got a lot of people in it. And if you have someone doing a startup business, chances are they'll probably be biking to that if they can.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything extra to build in per se, but if it, yeah,
There are some,
do something.
I think, there used to be at least some requirements for bike parking, which, you know, if you can park your bike, you're way more likely to ride your bike. But it's not at this stage. It's when the building permit starts to come in. But I really think the ability to get on and off both ends of your new sidewalk are really important.
So I think, Brandon, we've given you that perspective. Is there more? Should we make an agendize an official discussion of this down the road at this point? Or do you just have the information you need from us?
That's up to you. I don't know. You're gonna have to decide as a committee. Yeah, I don't know.
Well,
Have a strong opinion about the ramp, then we put it on for an action item and vote on it, and then it funnels its way up, and it's just a recommendation. I mean. so-
sure. Okay. Yeah,
And
well,
we get heard. I mean, that's the way that I think we get heard, is just funneling those action items up.
Well, how do we feel about that then? It makes sense to put that on the agenda as an action item for the next meeting if we feel like it would be useful to require the developer at this point to put we call it a curb ramp. Is that the?
mhm, yeah,
Um,
And it becomes an action item. If you disagree with it as a single committee member, you can just vote, no, I don't agree with that. We don't always all have to agree too.
I'm just trying to get a sense if we feel strong enough about it as a committee to put it on next month's agenda as an action item. Since I see.
I would
people
say-
I think so.
no, and Molly, my guess
That's
is
the
that you
one thing
feel,
that jumped out at.
okay,
And I think we could reinforce the mid-block crosswalk seems pretty important as well. So
sure.
we could reinforce that as well.
So this looks to me like something that intersection committee might draft into a motion to bring for an action item. Does that seem that way to anyone else?
like the development committee would do it because
Oh,
they're the ones working on new developments.
Okay. Fair enough.
Who's here from the development committee?
What?
Us and Molly.
Okay, is that something you could take on?
Sure.
Figure out when to meet, yeah.
Yeah.
And just full disclosure, the reason why I'm hesitant to commit to making that comment right now is because there's a lot more that goes into it than just like saying, oh, it seems like there needs to be a crosswalk there. So, for example, even though, and Molly knows this very well because we've had this discussion several times, but Idaho code says that pedestrians have the right of way to cross at every intersection. T intersections are a type of intersection, in my opinion. However, it on the through street, it does function more of like a mid-block crossing. So I have to take pedestrian safety into account. You got to remember that Woodland is 35 miles an hour right now. So if I tell the engineer for this project to add a striped crosswalk and a ramp at that intersection, and a kid gets hit and killed there, then I can get sued and I can lose my engineer's license. So I don't mean that to scare people. I'm just saying there's more thought that needs to go into it than just looking at it for 10 seconds and deciding you need a ramp. So that's the reason why I'm not committing right now, that I'm gonna put that comment in our staff.
Sure.
I have a question.
Well,
So,
I would just put in the curb ramp. I wouldn't suggest, unless there's sidewalk on the other side, I wouldn't suggest a striped crossing. And if there is use, then we need some other countermeasures. We'll need some, pedestrians ahead signs and other things that would be deemed important to create safety. But you don't want to pass up the chance to put in the basic infrastructure because it costs so much to do it later.
These things the development committee could take under advisement and provide us with a recommendation on
Sure,
our next meeting?
Can try, yeah.
I'll try. Yep, we'll do it.
Will you be ready to have an action item at that point, or should we just want to bring it up for further discussion?
So this is gonna move forward. Let's aim for an action item. We
Yeah.
could fail, but Jen, what do you say we make that our goal?
Sure.
All right.
We can give it a try.
Okay.
So I'm still confused. Should I put it on the agenda item as something we will vote on?
Let's,
Yes.
let's,
Okay.
Yes,
we can always.
Yeah.
All right.
Would
Thank
you
you.
like to separate the discussion about the woodland crosswalk and ramp and the discussion about the other recommendations, or would you like to do it? I have an agenda item on here that's just discussion and vote to make recommendations regarding the Great Northern Commerce Park subdivision. So I think maybe it's cleaner if the subcommittee or somebody else on the committee wants to come up with the proposed recommendations and the language for the motion. Hoping that that you can get a majority of your committee to vote on it.
Yeah, I
That might
think we
be
can just do one.
Okay.
All right. Anything further about Great Northern?
I had one comment. So if the committee does come up with their motion, it can also, when the full meeting occurs, you can amend the motion if you feel like there needs to be a little change in you have to approve that, and then it can be voted on at that point. So it doesn't have to be perfect when you bring it forward, there can always be an amendment made, and then as long as everybody agrees to vote on that, that can happen that way too. So that's just kind of procedural stuff.
That's good
Thanks.
to know.
That's helpful.
Thank you.
yeah, thanks.
Well, that brings us to the end of our agenda. All we have left is committee roundtable, which is opportunity for general announcements or comments from committee members or staff.
Can I start?
Yeah, go for it.
I wanted to bring up the idea, and it's up to y'all, but I don't know if maybe it might be helpful to you to add a standing item to all the agendas at the end of the meeting if we have time. Kind of for me to present upcoming private development projects, or at least do like a preliminary discussion of them, like the ones that I was unable to get on the agenda. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because they come in so fast.
That would be awesome.
Some of them we are like reviewing and approving in between your two meetings, so I don't know, just a thought.
That would be awesome.
I think we would welcome that, Brandon. Thank you.
Sounds great.
That sounds really great.
Wow. Got
Yeah.
a busy agenda for our next meeting. Did you want to add anything further to that, Brandon?
Well, and for a roundtable, that could happen now, right? It doesn't preclude it, but the other really points it out.
Sure, I don't want to take time away from the actual committee if you have other things you want to discuss, but if I could probably point out a couple of things. Well, first thing is, you may have seen, well, it was in the Reader today, and it was public noticed, but there is a proposed 6-story studio apartment complex proposed on Church Street, just east of Fifth Avenue. So across the street from the Sandpoint Center. It's kind of hard to imagine.
Army surplus, yeah.
It's kind of hard to imagine, but there was a Chinese restaurant
Yeah.
there. It's not on this lot, but it's right next to that lot. There's an existing house that I think was used as, anyway. So that's under staff review as well, so.
Do you know are they planning on using the empty lot and the current house lot, or is it just the one that currently has a house?
Just for now, it's just that one lot, so.
Is that the hostel?
No,
Yeah, I think people had been referring to it as a hostel.
it's next to a medical center. Used to be like a real estate house. Isn't it Mark Hall?
I'm actually gonna bring it up on Street View if that's.
It's
Oh, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's
There's a hostel coming in, a tiny little lot down there. Maybe is being
It's
referred
referred to as a hostel because it's 48 units on a single family lot. Yeah.
It's not a hostel, it's an
it's-
apartment building.
It's apartments, but does each one have its own kitchen?
Yes, so,
Okay.
so it's this house right here.
Yep.
Mhm.
There's an empty lot to the right of it. I'm looking south off of
Mhm.
standing next to church, across the street is the Sandpoint Center.
Mhm.
So they're gonna tear that building down and it's not a very big lot. Not very wide, but yeah, so I believe it's 48 units. They're very small. I think maybe even like 400 square foot studio apartments. They have kitchenettes in them. They have a full bathroom. They have a sleeping area and a living area. And our current code does not require off-street parking within the commercial, basically the downtown area. So you're not required to pave a giant parking lot and provide a mandated number of parking spaces like in a lot of other communities. So that will be the major debate that will be happening
Yeah,
in the
I'd
public
say.
about this project. The reason I would say it's important for this community is I would make the argument that, just in my opinion, I would make the argument that one of the reasons we have a quaint, walkable downtown with dense development is because we don't require that every time you build something, you have to pave a giant asphalt parking lot right next to it and provide a mandated number of cars that the city decides from some table that you have to have. The intent, the reason why that was proposed in the code, I think maybe 15 years ago or so, roughly, maybe you remember.
Oh,
But-
it wasn't 15 years ago, but it was
Oh,
probably
I
more
know
like
why it
10.
went in the code. It's because Joel's wanted to, they were a food truck and they couldn't have a restaurant. They couldn't afford the parking and we felt on P and Z at the time that they didn't need it. It was, and so we changed the parking regulations just for that area within the core of the downtown. If they were the other side of Fifth, I think they would have to have parking, would they not? I can't
Yeah.
remember what the borders are.
Yeah, I think it's on the other, there's another zone, a little bit wider zone that I believe has reduced parking requirements, if I understand it. But we're definitely in the zone here where they're not required to have
Yeah.
off-street parking. If you were to provide off-street parking, you might make the argument that the people that rent those are gonna be driving cars more often, you know? If the people, you know, the developers that make these buildings don't just wing it and build a building and think, oh, I hope that it works out. Like they do tons of way more market research than anybody in this building about whether they think that there's a market for people that would rent a 400 square foot apartment without having a dedicated off-street parking space. And they've made the decision that they think there is a market for that. And so absolutely, most people are gonna have cars because we're in a small town, so you just have to. It's not New York City, but you know, this is gonna be marketed at people that maybe work downtown, wanna live and shop downtown. And maybe they have a car, but they're fine parking it a couple of blocks away with a city downtown parking pass. And that's their long-term parking and, you know, 6 days a week, they're walking to ride their bike, so.
But they still have a car, that's the problem, and I think when we
48
did that, we never
spots.
envisioned 48 apartments on a single city lot.
Mhm.
So, but I don't know what our options are, we can't
Well-
collaboratively require parking.
I guess my comment would be is that, the guy who really researched all this and came up with the data, the parking guru, just died recently, and I would suggest that you seek that out and read what he wrote and educate yourselves, and then you can make a much more informed decision about why it is this way and why it isn't that way, because we all have our opinions just based upon that, is instead of being based upon factual data. And so I've learned a lot in doing this for 15 years, and sometimes I'm like, oh, it's this way, and then I would go and read stuff and it really swayed me to rethink from a different perspective, the whys. So I can't remember his name now.
Well, the name of the book is The High Cost of Free Parking. If anybody's interested. He's associated with this movement called, Strong Towns.
Hmm.
So it does tie into pedestrian and bicycle.
What-
Kind of overarching philosophy about
Hmm.
slower urban streets, dense development in cities. And separating between highways and urban streets.
What
And
I would see when it's my turn.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mo.
Okay, what I would see as our role is, okay, so the goal is to not have people drive. How we look at the building and think, can you get there from the sidewalk? Can you get to your apartment from the sidewalk? And is there covered, secure bike parking that maybe right and back that so that you don't have to go out in the snow or whatever to get your bike? And you feel like it's really secure. You're not just on a rack in front. Our role isn't to say yes or no as a committee, and committee members may want to testify pro or con, but to say, okay, if that's the goal, what are all the things we see that we think this building and development needs to succeed in being walkable, bikeable? That would be, from my 20 years on this kind of committee, what I would see as our role.
That would seem to me another project for the Development Review Committee. This is a new development, but is it ready for review, Brandon? At what point is input on that appropriate or useful?
So this one is a site plan review permit, and then it goes to building permit. So I don't believe that there are code mandated requirements for public hearing like there are with the previous project we just talked about, where it goes to P and Z and city council. However, I do believe that there are maybe provisions that it could possibly go in front of those bodies for comment. I don't know the answer to that right now. As far as like when the recommendations are most appropriate. You can go on, okay, I'm gonna go back to the city website here. You can go at the top of our homepage, you can go to departments,
Mhm.
planning, current projects. And the planning department has a list of all of the different permits and what we call, planning actions that are in process right now. So there's appeals, comp plan amendment, conditional use permit, that, that's larger developments that are required by code to have conditional use permits. Site plan review, it's this one right here, farm and flats. So this is all public information that anybody can go on our website and find. There's already almost 30 public comments here. I'll save you the time from reading through them. I think every single one of them is about parking. So that's why I said that's going to be the public discussion. There are absolutely valid points that the public comments are making. But anyway, that's the discussion that this community needs to have. So, but you can see the application documents, the narrative. There's a topo map. I think this might just be the form. Yeah, that's just the checklist. Here is a site plan. So these are the engineering drawings that were submitted with the application. Like I said, we're still in staff review, so none of these are final. They haven't been approved yet. But, go on the website and look through these. I know sometimes I take it for granted. I mean, if you're not used to looking at these architectural plans all the time, you might not know what any of this means, but this is kind of, can zoom in. They're pretty small units. I mean, I will admit that. But, you can kind of see a little floor plan here.
But there are people living in unfinished sheds. So depending on how they price these out, a 400 square foot finished apartment with a bathroom and a kitchen. And then you can walk to Domino's or Arby's, get your cheap meal. May or may not have a car, maybe your car is impounded or whatnot. Now that's if they price them budget friendly. I have no idea. I have
No elevator, just stairs.
I don't know I don't know if they're required to provide that much detail. So again, just to be clear, they haven't submitted for building permit yet. They're doing what's called site plan review, which basically gives myself and the city planner the ability to review preliminary plans and get them to a point where it's gonna meet code, but they don't actually have to be the final building plans. They get that site plan approval, and then they can go and apply for a building permit, at which point they need to provide stamped engineering drawings for the site and the stormwater and, final building plans for our building official to review.
So our committee, let's say the development committee looks at it and has some things that it thinks are important. We can, and brings it back and we have, the committee takes action, we can submit a comment, right?
And they don't have to do anything with it, but we can say something.
Right.
Well, it's about, our time's about up unless anyone has something else, anyone else has something very short he or she wants to.
The last time we talked about bringing comments on that Forest 3 project. We're gonna add that to the agenda next month.
Oh, no, what project?
Fourth Street.
Oh, yes,
sidewalk.
we forgot to add that to the agenda for today.
Yeah.
And I've made a note to add that as well as feedback on the downtown revitalization that Brandon talked about last month. We will have those as discussion items for the May meeting.
Not action items, discussion items.
Correct.
Okay.
The TMP, whatever, subcommittee had a bunch of recommendations that we looked at today or heard about. Why don't we put those on as an action item? We
They are.
don't have to act if we're not ready.
We have those, I mean, I've made a note to add those as an action item for next month, Molly.
Thank you. Okay, apologies.
Speaking of that, Molly will be running that meeting. I will be otherwise occupied that day, so yeah.
It's gonna be busy.
Yeah, you'll have a lot to do, Molly.
I can tell.
All right.
You're gonna be back for the summer at the next meeting, huh,
Yeah,
Molly?
she'll be here in person.
I reply back this weekend.
All
Good
right.
timing. It's starting to get nice now.
Yeah.
Good. It's gonna be 97 tomorrow here, so I'm ready.
Yeah.
Don't come back
Yeah.
Saturday. It's gonna be 48 here, I think.
Yeah.
Saturday.
Oh, yay.
Come back Sunday.
Sounds good.
All right, since we have no further business, the meeting is now adjourned at 12:57 PM. Thank you all for
Good.
coming.
Did you get volunteers for the event?
I did.